Hey everyone, rudyxx here to talk to you today about Black Desert Online, a game I was tricked into playing for MMO Quest. What do you mean by tricked, you say? Well, first off, Black Desert Online doesn't have a level cap, and the point of MMO Quest was to reach max level in a bunch of MMORPGs. This put me in quite a bind because by the time I had found this out, I was already knees deep in story and I didn't want to just up and quit cold turkey. After finding out about the infinite leveling system, I started asking around for opinions on how far I should go. The first answer I got was that the story basically calmed down close to level 50 and that the leveling process got pretty repetitive once you got to level 50. The second answer I got was that most players stop actually trying to gain levels at 56 after doing their awakening quest and just go into in-game activities at that point. The final answer I got was that there was essentially a soft cap at level 60 because the time it takes to level from 60 to 61 is well over 100 hours of solid grinding, and at that point there's not really even much point in doing so anyways. At that point, I basically said to myself, I'm just going to kind of play to level 50 and then wrap up the story and give up there. I've got zero desire to get involved in in-game activities, so from what I had been told, I may as well just stop there, and there's really not much reason to keep going after that. But at the same time, though, I felt like I was kind of going the lame route and giving up before I hit what is actually the in-game grind for things. So I eventually decided to go all the way to at least level 56 before stopping, as that seemed like a more appropriate place to stop compared to stopping at 50. Now, having gotten all of that out of the way, let me tell you about my leveling experience as I played through Black Desert Online. First off, I was incredibly confused how the combat actually worked, and thank God one of my friends told me not to play the game like I would any standard MMO, and to follow the default configuration exactly. One of the things I'm very used to in MMORPGs is having all my skills set up on hotbars, and using moves in succession based on basic hotbar settings. Apparently, Black Desert Online is very anti-hotbar, and I was told that some of the moves do even less damage if you use them through the hotbars instead of their goofy configuration. At this point, you are probably asking yourself, what does any of this mean? And I guess I should start over with the basics on how Black Desert Online controls. So all of your moves are based on right and left clicks, in combination with which direction you are holding as well as the shift or the control keys. Left clicking will produce an entirely different move than holding shift and left clicking. Pressing left and left clicking will produce an entirely different move than moving left, pressing control and left clicking. The combat is incredibly confusing at first, but luckily the pacing for the moves and how you learn them is enough that it's actually fairly easy to pick up on eventually. Doing certain button combinations in a particular order will eventually produce a different set of moves than pressing those exact same button combinations but in an entirely different order. Things like holding right click and then pressing shift and left click will produce a different set of moves than holding left click and pressing shift and right clicking. And it really wasn't until much higher levels that this sort of thing really came into play, so right off the bat, they do pace the learning process in a fairly good way. However, it definitely sounds needlessly complicated. And when I first started, I was told not to put everything on my hotbars. I was like, okay, this sounds incredibly awful. But as I got more and more used to it, and tried more and more button combinations, I eventually enjoyed it quite a bit. Beyond getting past the controls, the questing was a little complicated at first, as I was getting points for a ton of different things that I wasn't even sure what they were for. I would gain skill points randomly in the middle of combat or some type of relationship points as I talked to random NPCs in town. I ended up having to do far more research than I originally thought I would have to do, as the game really deviated a lot from the standard for MMORPGs. What I eventually ended up discovering is that the game played a lot more like games such as Skyrim or The Witcher, and that a lot of what I was doing wasn't even progressing my levels further. At first I was pretty frustrated about this because I just wanted to hit level cap. I eventually got over it and tried to just enjoy the game instead of focusing so much on my goal. Black Desert Online plays a lot more like a single-player Western RPG than it does your standard MMORPG, with a story that centers around doing a lot of side quests to gain reputation around town as you progress. I eventually lost interest and just started mindlessly grinding. The game definitely has a lot to offer. There's a billion different things to do, but for me a lot of it was more of a chore than I really wanted it to be. I mean, I enjoyed my overall experience of the game, but I too often felt like I was playing a single-player game as there really wasn't any reason to group up with anyone until I reached around level 52. Somewhere between 52 and 53, I started trying to grind in the suggested areas, but I often found they were pretty crowded, so I kind of struggled wandering around the map trying to find something to fight. Eventually, one day as I was off killing whatever, someone walked up to me and asked if I wanted a group, and I agreed. The party I was in had 5 people, and everything was just getting incredibly wrecked. I wasn't expecting the EXP gain to be very good, but it actually went really well. From that point forward, I basically just grouped up with others for 30 minutes or so every day, all the way up until level 55. It was a short bit into 55 that I basically said, okay, I'm done. I've spent the last 20-ish levels grinding, and at this point I know I'm going to spend the entire rest of this level still in this exact same spot, killing the exact same 6 groups of enemies, over and over, for another 20 hours just to reach level 56 and quit there. I'd gotten my Black Desert Online experience at that point, and I was ready to move on. There's definitely a very different feel between level 49 and 50 in the game, and in fact once you reach level 50 a lot of different quests for gear and stuff start to open up. So for me the actual in-game process kind of really started at 50. From what I understand, 56 and when you unlock your awakening, a lot of things kind of change drastically at that point, but you can start collecting a lot of the gear and stuff you need for that point before that. And since I was really only interested in reaching the end game, essentially, I was fine with stopping at 55 instead of going all the way to 56. Black Desert Online is an incredible game if you want a single-player game experience with a lot of additional content. In-game for Black Desert is basically just PvP and EXP grinding, since there's not really any raids or dungeons in the game. If you look at it in the same way you would a game like Skyrim, except with other heroes running around the world, then it's actually pretty fantastic. But if you're looking for a normal MMORPG feel, then at no point in time did I really feel like I was part of an MMORPG, despite there being a ton of people wandering around. I had little to no reason to ever talk to another player, and the only conversations I did have with anyone were them asking to grind EXP, and then basically nothing beyond that. I was never put in a position where I was forced to interact with anyone, and for a vast majority of the game, I never really saw anyone out in the wild somewhere. I'd occasionally run past some people on the road while going along the trail from one place to another, but since the game features an auto-travel system, they were probably AFK to begin with. I hope everyone enjoyed my review of my experience with Black Desert Online. It was an interesting game to go through, but not really my cup of tea. If you'd like to keep up with any of my future MMORPG experiences, then feel free to subscribe or follow my Twitch page, link below the video. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep gaming.